Your grandparents never once bought salad dressing, not a single bottle. And the food they ate was richer, fuller, and more satisfying than anything you've bought this week. Here's what nobody tells you about the food industry takeover. It didn't happen with guns, it happened with convenience. One by one, the things people used to make at home, things that took 5 minutes and cost almost nothing, were replaced by products on a shelf. And somewhere in that swap, we didn't just lose recipes. We lost flavor, we lost nutrition, and we lost something harder to name. A kind of independence, a relationship with food that our great-grandparents would find completely unrecognizable today. I've spent months researching what those homemade staples actually were. Not just what ingredients they used, but why they worked, why we stopped making them, and what it cost us. And number 4 on this list is going to genuinely shock you, because it's something you probably consume every single week without realizing the homemade version is completely different. Stay with me. Number 1, bone broth. Not stock, not bouillon cubes, not the stuff in the carton at the grocery store. Real bone broth, the kind that your great-grandmother made by simmering bones for anywhere from 12 to 48 hours until the liquid turned into a golden, gelatinous concentrate that sat solid in the fridge overnight. That gel is not a mistake. That gel is collagen, gelatin, glycine, compounds that support joint health, gut lining integrity, and skin elasticity. Compounds that no store-bought broth contains in meaningful amounts because commercial broth is made fast. Very fast. Pressure cooked for efficiency, flavored with yeast extract to fake depth, and packaged before it ever has a chance to develop the nutritional density your body actually responds to. Here's what got replaced. A pot that sat on the back of the stove all week. Every leftover bone, from chicken carcass to beef knuckles to pork ribs, went in. Nothing was wasted. And the result was a liquid so rich it cost almost nothing and formed the base of nearly every meal. What replaced it? A billion-dollar broth industry that sells you water and salt in a box with a picture of a farmhouse on it. The homemade version is not hard, it is just slow. And we traded slow for fast and called it progress. But bone broth is just the beginning, because the next one is not even something most people under 40 have ever tasted in its real form. Number 2, cultured butter. Before refrigeration changed everything, butter wasn't made from fresh cream. It was made from cream that had been left to sit, to sour slightly, to ferment, and in that fermentation, something extraordinary happened. The cream developed a complex, tangy, almost nutty flavor that modern butter simply does not have. What you buy at the store today is sweet cream butter. It is made from fresh, pasteurized cream, churned fast and designed to be inoffensive, shelf-stable, consistent, profitable. Cultured butter, the kind every European farmhouse produced for centuries, contains live bacterial cultures, a slightly lower pH, and a flavor profile so dramatically richer that professional chefs still pay a premium for it. It tastes like something real, deep, complex. And here's the wild part. You can make it at home with 2 ingredients: heavy cream and a tablespoon of good quality yogurt or buttermilk. You let it sit at room temperature for 24 hours, then churn it. The result is a butter so different from what you buy at the supermarket that the first time people taste it side by side, they almost do not believe it is the same product. We stopped making it because cold chain logistics made sweet cream butter easier to produce at scale. Not better, easier. And we are only at number 2. I promised you number 4 would be the one that really reframes how you think about your weekly grocery list, and we are getting there. But first, number 3 is the one that explains why home cooks in the 1950s never once bought a bottle of salad dressing. Number 3, homemade vinaigrette. Not just oil and vinegar, emulsified vinaigrette. This is a technique that has almost completely disappeared from home kitchens, and its disappearance is the reason the salad dressing aisle exists. Here is the difference. When you shake oil and vinegar together, they separate almost immediately. You get an unstable, thin liquid that coats nothing properly. But when you add a small amount of mustard, the mucilage from mustard seeds, which acts as a natural emulsifier, and whisk it slowly, you get a sauce that stays together, that clings to leaves, that coats ingredients instead of pooling at the bottom of the bowl. Grandmothers knew this. They knew that a teaspoon of Dijon mustard, a tablespoon of good vinegar, 3 tablespoons of olive oil, a pinch of salt, and 30 seconds of whisking produced a dressing so superior to anything bottled that comparing them is almost unfair. What is in the bottle instead? Water, high fructose corn syrup, xanthan gum, calcium disodium EDTA, and natural flavor, which is a legal term that can mean almost anything. The homemade version costs less than 5 cents per serving. The bottled version averages around 40 cents per serving. By every meaningful measure, the bottled version is worse. Stop, because I want you to think about how many things on this list you already sort of know, but have never fully confronted. That feeling gets stronger, I promise. Number 4, fermented hot sauce. This is the one I told you about. And here's why it matters so much. The hot sauce you buy, even the ones marketed as artisan, even the ones with the cool bottle and the hand-drawn label, is almost certainly made with vinegar brine and processed peppers. It is acidic, it is stable, and it is missing the entire point. Traditional fermented hot sauce is made by packing peppers and salt together and letting the naturally occurring lactobacillus bacteria on the pepper skins eat the sugars and produce lactic acid. This process, lactofermentation, takes 1 to 4 weeks. At the end of it, you do not just have hot sauce. You have a living, probiotic-rich, deeply flavored condiment with a complexity of taste that vinegar-based sauces cannot achieve because they were never fermented in the first place. Here is what was lost. Generations of home cooks in the American South, in Mexico, in Korea, in West Africa, all cultures maintained fermented pepper traditions that connected flavor to gut health in a way we now pay supplement companies to approximate. What replaced it? A bottle of red vinegar with capsaicin extract, made in a factory in under 48 hours, shipped to every supermarket in the country. And the really uncomfortable part, if you've only ever eaten processed hot sauce, you do not know what you're missing because you've never tasted the real thing, and that is exactly how the food industry wants it. We're halfway through and I've barely touched the surface of what actually happened to our food system. Number 7 is where this gets genuinely uncomfortable because it is not about flavor. It is about what we removed from a staple food and sold back to us as a separate product. Number 5, rendered lard. The most maligned cooking fat in modern food history and almost certainly one of the most wrongly maligned. Before the vegetable oil industry launched one of the most effective marketing campaigns in American history in the early 20th century, lard was the universal cooking fat. Pie crusts, frying, sautéing, biscuits, all of it lard. And pie crusts made with lard are objectively flakier than those made with butter or shortening. This is not nostalgia. This is food science. Lard fat crystals are larger and they create more distinct layers in pastry dough. Beyond the texture argument, lard is relatively high in monounsaturated fat, the same type found in olive oil. It is stable at high temperatures. It is free of trans fats when rendered properly at home. For most of human history, it was considered a health food in the sense that it was real, whole, and unprocessed. What replaced it? Crisco. Vegetable shortening made through industrial hydrogenation, a process that created trans fats and, we now know, contributed to decades of cardiovascular disease, while lard took the blame. The homemade version, rendering lard from pork fat back, is a 30-minute process that produces a pure, flavorful fat that keeps for months. The commercial alternative was literally worse for you, and we were told the opposite. Take a second with that, because what you just heard is not a fringe claim. It is documented, and it is not the last time the food industry will appear on this list. Number 6. Sourdough Starter, and specifically sourdough as the default bread. Before commercial yeast was sold in packets in the late 19th century, every household that baked bread maintained a sourdough culture. It was a living colony of wild yeast and lactobacillus bacteria, fed daily and used as the leavening agent for all bread baking. This was not a specialty item. This was bread. Default, standard bread, and it was fundamentally different from what we call bread today. The long fermentation of sourdough, typically 12 to 24 hours, breaks down phytic acid in the grain. Phytic acid is an anti-nutrient that binds to minerals like zinc, iron, and magnesium and prevents your body from absorbing them. Commercial bread made with instant yeast in 2 hours skips this entirely. You eat the bread, you absorb almost none of the minerals. Sourdough also has a dramatically lower glycemic response. Studies consistently show that authentic sourdough raises blood sugar significantly less than the same grain baked with commercial yeast. This is not a small difference. We replaced it with ultra-processed bread made in under 3 hours, containing 20-plus ingredients including dough conditioners, emulsifiers, and preservatives. Then we marketed a loaf of sliced white bread as a staple of a healthy American diet. Number 7. This is the one I told you was uncomfortable. When you make whole milk yogurt at home and let it strain through a cloth, 2 things come out. The thick, creamy, strained yogurt, which is essentially what we now sell as Greek yogurt for $3 to $5 a container, and the liquid that drips through, whey. Whey is a complete protein. It is rich in lactoferrin, an immune-modulating protein. It contains live cultures. For centuries, it was used as a probiotic tonic, added to soups, used to ferment other foods, and given to children as a digestive aid. Home yogurt makers used all of it. Nothing was wasted. Here's what the food industry did. It took the process of straining yogurt, which cost nothing at home, and turned the whey byproduct into a multi-billion-dollar protein supplement industry. The same way that home cooks used in their bread or drank straight was processed, dried, powdered, flavored with artificial sweetener and synthetic chocolate flavoring, and sold back to us for $40 a kilogram. They took a byproduct of something your grandmother made for free and turned it into a premium health product. And we bought it. Literally. We still have 3 more. They build on each other in a way that makes the full picture almost impossible to unsee. Number 8. Preserved lemons and citrus. This is a staple that has entirely vanished from Western home kitchens, even though it costs almost nothing, takes 5 minutes of active effort, and produces a flavoring ingredient so potent and distinctive that professional chefs treat it as a luxury item. Preserved lemons, packed in salt and left to ferment for 3 to 4 weeks, develop a flavor that is simultaneously intensely citrusy and deeply savory. The peel softens. The bitterness is replaced by umami. A single quarter of preserved lemon adds more depth to a dish than an entire bottle of lemon juice. This was common knowledge across North African, Middle Eastern, and Mediterranean cooking traditions for centuries. In America, it was home-preserved citrus, used the same way that flavored cooking before the extract industry made bottled lemon flavor cheap and universal. What replaced it? Citric acid. Artificial lemon flavor, lemon concentrate, all of which are shelf-stable, all of which are profitable, and none of which tastes like a lemon that has been slowly, carefully transformed by salt and thyme. Number 9. Fresh, hand-pulled pasta, and specifically the egg-to-flour ratios that different regions developed over centuries. In Italy, every region had its own pasta tradition. Emilia-Romagna used egg yolk-heavy pasta for its richness. The South used semolina and water for its bite. Each formula was calibrated to the local wheat, the local climate, the local dishes. This knowledge was granular, specific, and entirely practical. Grandmothers knew by feel when the dough was right. They knew how thick to roll for pappardelle versus tagliatelle. They knew how long to dry it. This was not gourmet hobby cooking. This was domestic skill passed between generations. What replaced it? A dried pasta industry standardized on a single formula, refined semolina, water, and industrial extrusion. That produces a product shelf-stable for years, and that is nutritionally stripped of the egg yolk's fat-soluble vitamins and the fresh grain's complexity. But more than the nutrition, the skill was lost. The feel was lost. The specific regional knowledge accumulated over hundreds of years of iteration was replaced by a machine that runs the same formula everywhere, for every pasta, for every market. And now people pay premium prices at restaurants for fresh pasta that their great-grandmothers would have made on a Wednesday afternoon without a second thought. And everything I have told you so far, every single staple on this list, connects back to number 10. Because number 10 is not a food, it is a practice. And losing it is the reason all 9 of the others disappeared. Number 10, the Larder Mindset. Before supermarkets, before weekly grocery runs, before refrigerators made storage effortless, there was the larder. Not just a physical pantry, but a philosophy of how a household related to food. Every week, things were made in batches. Broth simmered. Butter was churned. Bread was set to prove. Ferments were checked. Preserves were inspected. The kitchen was not a place you visited 3 times a day to assemble something. It was a continuous living operation. And the larder mindset changed how people cooked in a fundamental way. Nothing was wasted because everything had a next use. The chicken became stock. The stock became soup. The leftover soup became the braising liquid for the next cut of meat. The fat skimmed from the broth went into the pastry. Every element in the kitchen was part of a cycle. What replaced it? The weekly shopping list, the fully prepared meal, the drive-through, the delivery app. And with each step in that direction, another skill was deprecated. Another recipe was forgotten. Another technique stopped being passed down because nobody was around to pass it down. This is not nostalgia. This is an accounting of what we lost. And the accounting matters because these staples were not just culturally interesting. They were nutritionally superior, economically efficient, and they produced food that actually tasted like something. We gave all of it up for speed, and the entities that benefited were not us. Here's the thing I want you to take away from this. You cannot reclaim all of it at once. You do not have to. But if you pick one thing from this list, just one, and learn to make it at home, something shifts. Not just in what you eat, in how you understand food, in what you expect food to taste like, in what you are willing to accept from a package. The people who still make bone broth do not buy it in cartons. The people who make sourdough do not eat supermarket bread and think it tastes the same. The people who ferment their own hot sauce look at the salsa aisle completely differently. Knowledge changes perception, and perception changes behavior. And changed behavior, done enough times by enough people, changes demand. And changed demand is the only thing the food industry actually responds to. Start with the vinaigrette. Literally 3 ingredients in 30 seconds. Make it once, taste it, and then taste the bottle. And then decide what you want to do with that information. That is the whole point of this list. If you want to go deeper on any of these, I have been building out a full series on what the food industry replaced and why. The history, the nutrition science, and the actual simple techniques for getting these staples back into your kitchen without it becoming a lifestyle project. Subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Because the next video is about 3 pantry staples that were quietly reformulated in the last 30 years, and the original versions are still available if you know what to look for. That one is going to hit different.